embarrass me on my own shit, you know. Um, all right, I think we're gonna have to go back. All right, start of the journey, humble beginnings, because you are a lady that does everything under the sun. So we need to start off of where that started, why that started, and then also what you do now, I guess.
All right, back to the beginning. So I born and raised in LA, was had a pretty normal childhood with the exception of both of my parents were in the industry. So my mom is an actress. Her name is Dee Wallace. People know her from Cujo and E.T., The Howling. And my dad was also in the entertainment industry. He was an actor as well as a director. And apart from getting to travel a lot as a child, because we would always go, to film sets to stay together as a family if someone was shooting out of town for more than a week. Apart from that and growing up on different film sets, I had a really normal childhood. Both of my parents were like very, normal in a sense. And they were always at sports games or dance recitals. Like they were very present with me. And all of that came to a screeching halt when I was a 6-year-old little girl. My mom was in New Zealand filming a movie called The Frighteners, and I was at home with my dad and my nanny. And I went in on Saturday to wake him up to watch morning cartoons, and he wasn't in his bedroom. So I went in to the bathroom and found him lying on the floor, dead from a heart attack. So that was the first kind of big life event that really, I think, changed my trajectory as a human. I mean, that's obviously a big thing for a little girl to go through. My mom flew back. God bless Peter Jackson, who was her director at the time, who was just the most kind man on the planet, was like, just go home, Dee. It's okay. This is just a movie. This is your life. Go home and take care of your little girl. So she flew home, which, as you know, is like a 24-hour plane ride. It's insane.
Yeah.
And took care of me, got all of the affairs in order, did his celebration of life, and then took me and my nanny, and we all flew back to New Zealand, and she finished the film like a badass. And I think that was the first example I had as to what you do when your life explodes in front of your face. Like you power through and you keep going. So in that moment, dealing with all of that with my dad's death, I developed this fear of abandonment. And when I love someone, they die. And in a less literal sense, when I love someone, they leave. That fear was reaffirmed in me when I lost my high school sweetheart in a car accident when I was 18. And it really just like reopened that wound. Not like you ever get over, your father's death, but, time does heal and you learn how to like work through things and you go to therapy, and it had lessened. And then I lost him, and it was just like, oh, remember this gaping wound that you have inside your soul? Let's rip that back open. And it really, again, reaffirmed that when I love someone, they die. When I love someone, they leave. Because this was the two first men in my life that I had love for that were very tragically ripped away from me. Fast forward to, through all of my crazy teen years and early college days. And I met a man that everybody kind of thought was like, this is the answer. I had always kind of dated guys that I needed to fix in some type of way. Which I will say I did a very good job at. Some of them are great people now. But this was the first person that came into my life that was like, oh, he has his shit together. She doesn't really need to fix him, and really kind of like made sense when he came into my life. And he proposed after 8 months of us being together. We had a 2-year engagement and then had this really beautiful wedding that my mom worked her ass off to pay for. I'm like the only daughter. So it was the only child, not just the only daughter. And we had this beautiful wedding and everything was pretty great on the outside and looked pretty wonderful. Almost 2 years into our marriage, I found out that he was having an affair with a 19-year-old for 6 months. And it was so shocking to me, to his mother, to my family and friends. Like no one saw this coming. Like in a million years, if you had to say, he's going to do something shocking. What's it going to be? That would have been the last thing on the list. We had been unhappy for probably 6 to 7 months. We had been going to therapy. I didn't realize why we were so unhappy, but it was clear looking at the timeline of the affair, how that kind of all lined up. So I filed for divorce and left. Really felt like it was this new beginning chance I had been given. If I wouldn't have had something so drastic done by him, it would have taken me a lot longer to say, you know, like, I'm not happy. I don't want to be in this marriage anymore. Because I would have been saying, let's try and go to therapy. Let's work through it. I took vows, you know, that's a responsibility. So he really, I feel like, gave me an out. So because of that, I was oddly okay after the divorce. Like I knew it was kind of all happening for a reason, and was like, okay, this is all. Yes, I was betrayed and enraged, but I felt like this was going to be a good thing in the long run. So shortly after that, I met this guy and we fell madly in love with each other. Like, I had this whirlwind romance, 0 to 100, meet my family. I'm going to have babies with this person, like, signed, sealed, delivered, we're done. And he invited me on a month-long trip to Italy, which of course at first I was like, are you crazy? We've only known each other for a few days at this point. And asked him when he was leaving. And he said September 4th, which would have been my 2-year wedding anniversary.
That's my mother's birthday. It's great.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
September 4th. Hey, I celebrate that day now. It's one of the things that I like celebrate each year. And I was like, okay, when are you coming back? And he goes, October 4th, which would have been my late father's birthday. So at this point, I'm like, okay, universe, I fucking hear you. I'm going on the trip. Like, okay.
Yeah.
So we're together for a month and a half and everything is like blissfully amazing. I meet his family. We're just like that annoying couple that you see in romance movies where you're like, I just want to puke all over your face. And 48 hours before we're getting on the plane, he tells me he needs to go by himself and breaks up with me. And I was absolutely devastated. Like, this man broke my heart like my ex-husband never could have done.
So you were in Italy?
No. This was 2 days before we were getting on the plane to fly to Italy.
What the fuck?
Yeah. So, and we'll back up after in a second.
No, you go for it.
Dive into the reaning behind that. And I'm sitting on my bed in a pool of tears at my mother's house, because that's where you move when you get divorced. And I'm like, well, Gabrielle, you can either stay at home heartbroken or you can go travel Europe for a month by yourself. And staying at home heartbroken was not a fucking option for me at this point. So I was like, all right, we're going to go. And I took a backpack and did 6 countries over the span of a month. And I ended up writing the book, Eat, Pray, FML, about all of it.
My gal, that's awesome. You know that
it was a journey.
That's so heavy, man. Like, and I also want to take a little side note on it and say thank you for sharing that so heavily. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing writing it down, but you've got that disconnect, right? You've got a medium to be able to keep people at arm's length, and putting your kind of face on there and hearing the words coming out of your mouth takes that medium away. And that's harder to do, right? For them people to hear that. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for that.
That's a lot. That's heavy. But I'm okay.
I know, you're like, where do we even start at this point? You said start at the beginning, so there's a lot of shit to unpack.
I love this shit though, man. Like, I like seeing people. So that like initial thing where you're like, right, you can either sit here or go travel Europe, right, for a month. And the first one is not an option. Why was the first one not an option for you?
I mean, the thought of this person that I was still madly in love with at this point, going to Europe and seeing him travel around, and me being at home, divorced, 28. Of course, that's very young, but at the time you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to meet anyone ever again. Divorced at my mother's house in shambles. Like, that doesn't sound like it's going to be very good for my mental health. And I had wanted to go to Europe for a really long time. I had always told my ex-husband, like, before we discuss having kids, we have to do like a month-long trip in Europe because I want to see the world more. And I had never traveled by myself. I had traveled alone to like go to a film set, but that's so different. You know, you get on a plane and then you're met by all the people you're going to be working with for however long. This was very, very different. And I'm also a huge planner, and this left me no time to do that. So luckily I have a girlfriend I went to high school with, who's a good friend of mine who lives in London. And our flight was supposed to be from LA to London and then London to Rome and starting in Rome. So I took the flight and started in London. So at least I had like a home base, but it was just something inside of me. I knew that I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason, not in the toxic positivity way, but in the actual, like, there is reasoning behind everything. And if you can find the magic in that, then life is going to look a lot different. So I think that we mirror things in our lives. Like we attract things that are going to mirror what we need to heal and fix. So for me, you know, it was the fear of abandonment, the when I love someone, they leave, the fear of being alone really was at the core of it. And so I attracted my ex-husband, who abandoned me in the most heinous way possible, by betraying our marriage. And the universe was like, okay, Gabrielle, are we ready to look at this abandonment stuff yet? And I was like, no, we're good. I'm good. I'm just going to go this way. And then I attracted the man after, who quite literally abandoned me 48 hours before we were stepping on a plane to go on this trip that he invited me on. And the universe was like, okay, Gabrielle, are we ready now? And I was like, oh, fucking A. Okay, I guess. Yeah, let's go heal some shit. And you almost I had to laugh because it was so ridiculous that I had now been put in the situation where I was going to be across the world by myself. The universe was like, yeah, it's time. We're going to go heal it in the biggest way possible. Have fun. So I knew that it was all happening, and it was something that really big was going to be happening on this trip. And I knew I had to go.
You got to throw yourself in the deep end sometimes, right? And I think it's really important. The thing that you said, like, if you don't learn from it for the first time, you will end up making the same mistake over and over and over again. It's like
100%.
whether you feel ready or not, you need to go fix that shit. You need to go heal from it. You need to go do that situation or whatever it is, right? Take that time for yourself. And
yeah,
a lot of the time that usually is going internal and figuring that out. And I think a fresh environment helps that so much. Like I'm very similar. I go on like these nomadic trips where I just disappear and go somewhere. I don't know where I am. People don't know my name. Like I just kind of disappear off the grid. And that's what you did, you know, 6 countries, 1 month, just kind of poof, disappeared.
And there's something so special about solo travel.
Yeah.
Now I have such a love and appreciation for it. Before on the plane over there, the only thing I knew about hostels was that there is a horror movie about them and people get brutally fucking murdered in that movie. That was the extent of what I knew about hostels. Now, obviously, they're like adult summer camps. It's like the best place possible. But there's something so special when you go somewhere where people don't know you or where you're from. And I feel like when you meet people, when you're traveling, that layer of bullshit that society like places upon us is gone. So not only are you meeting people as your authentic self, but you're also having these like very quick formed connections that are, you know, like I've become best friends with people I've met on my travels and that I still talk to from this day, like till this day. So there's something so special about really going out of your comfort zone and realizing how capable you are by yourself.
I'm going to play devil's advocate because I'm interested to hear your take on this. Do you think society places it on you, or do you think you adopt it to feel like you fit in?
I think both. I think there's so much external things that we get from the media and, you know, from different forms of, you know, magazines or celebrities where we initially are like, oh, they're telling me like that this is what's cool or this is what needs to happen in order for me to fit in. And I think we also put it on, we do it to ourselves sometimes because we have had experiences where, you know, Jenny on the playground looks at you and you're like, she's like, no, that dress sucks. And then you're like, oh my God, I can't wear dresses anymore because people judge that, you know, like stupid shit like that we adopt from different situations that we have throughout our life. So I think it's both.
Yeah, I think so. I think life is a gray area or a rainbow, as someone pointed out to me, rather than thinking about it as gray, think about it as
I love that.
multicolored, right? I was like, I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Rather than just black and white, right? One or the other. It's usually the abundance of things, everything just thrown together, and
That's great.
when we come out the arse end of it,
Love
usually,
that. That's a
usually
great fucking analogy.
usually, a lot less confused as we walked in. I
Yes,
think.
I'm gonna adopt that. I'm gonna use that. That's great.
Oh, you have to quote me. No, I'm joking. Don't quote me. Take it. It's fine. You usually I think you sieve through your own bullshit when you spend a lot of time by yourself, right? Because you you adopt a load of different fucking characters, right? And you play them out, and it doesn't work, and you end up fighting against yourself, right? And that causes a lot of mental anguish. And you're like, cool, that one's not for me. I'm gonna throw that one to the side. I'm gonna go again. Oh, that one's not for me. And then you come back. Granted, you might be someone completely different, but it's real, man, and that's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that a lot of times we don't even really know ourselves until we give ourselves that time and space to be alone. We're always like, when you're home, like there's a TV on, or you have a friend over, or you're on the phone, or you're at least looking at your phone on social media. It's like you're never really just alone with your thoughts to like for a good amount of time. And solo travel for me gives you so much of that. And not only do you realize so many incredible things about yourself, but you also get to realize that you actually, quite like being alone. I mean, some of my favorite memories are walking through the streets with my headphones in and just like taking in my surroundings and really like being with myself and with my thoughts, or sitting at a cafe and writing for 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It was this like really incredible thought change for me that was like, oh, being alone isn't scary, it's empowering. And that was a huge thing for me to realize.
Being alone isn't scary, it's empowering. I'm going to quote that one.
Yeah.
That's fucking next level. Like, I think the strongest things in the world is the feelings, right? It's not anything tangible. It's not something that you can really define or quantify. It's these things where you're like, I don't really know how to explain it, but I got a massive smile on my face, and I'm walking through a country that English is not, the first language. I can't speak the native language, but I'm having a great time. And I'm like, yes, you go.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something that's really, really magical about just feeling that.
So the book.
Yes.
Talk to me.
So kind of like I knew I had to go on the trip, I also was like, I'm going to write a book. I was not a writer at the time. I was an actress and director. I had written a short screenplay that had been made, but that's vastly different than being like, I'm going to write a book. And it just hit me in that moment. Like I knew the title, I knew what it was going to look like.
Wow.
And I went and bought a leather-bound journal the day before I left and took it with me. I started writing my first day in London. And yes,
It's literally right next to it.
The way to go.
Yeah.
And I started writing my first day in London and wrote 3/4 of the book on the trip in that journal by hand. And it's not like I was journaling and then came home and turned it into a book. Like if you open that journal, it's like chapter 1, and it's very, very close to how the published book ended up being. And it was so, I feel like people are always, when they read, they're like, oh my God, I felt like I was traveling with you. And I felt like I was having wine in Italy with you, and like all these different places. And I think it's because I was writing it as it was happening, So like I would go and have this like crazy night out in Barcelona. And then the next day I would go to a cafe and sit and write about it for a couple hours. So it was being written as it was happening. I had no idea how the book was going to end. I had no idea like when the finish point was, or like what the story was going to look like. But I knew that too much had happened to me in that small period of time from the time that I found out about my ex-husband's affair to the time I came home from Europe with the guy and the love affair and the heartbreak in between was a 3.5 month period. So
What?
life was just like smacking me like left and right. And I just kept somehow stumbling and getting up. And I was like, this isn't normal. This is needs to be written about. And my friends would call me and be like, we're just calling to get an update on the Netflix show that has become Gabrielle's life. And
Hey,
it was true. It really was. So I knew that I wanted to write it. I finished it when I came home. So the whole thing was written in like 2.5, 3 months, which is, I know from writing my second book, is wildly fast. And at first I came home and was like, this has to go to one of the big 5 publishers. Like, I know how good it is, like that this is what we're going to do. Sent it out to all those publishers. And it was like, it's too in your face. I think we would need to tone it down. I don't think there's a big enough audience for it. All these like, no's. And I was like, not going to tone it down. I don't understand the whole not a big enough audience, like every woman everywhere. And then I do also have a lot of male readers when they can get past the fact that there's pink writing on the cover. And I was like, okay, I'm going to self-publish it. Lo and behold, again, everything happens for a reason. Best thing I could have done, because I now know from doing my audiobook that the money you make if you self-publish versus the money you make if you're getting a 20% royalty is insane. Like, I don't know how normal writers make money. And the book took off, blew up, and completely changed my life. And it's given me a career. I've published 2 books now. The second one is a direct sequel to the first. And I have a podcast because of it, and with like an entire merch line, and all of these people that are now in this community that are healing from all the bullshit that I went through. And you can't write that shit. You look at my life as a blueprint and you're like, of course it all happened that way. Look
mm.
where she had to come.
It's the authenticity that shines through, man. It's what people relate to, and it's what people get gravitated
Oh,
towards rather than, the watered down version,
yeah.
the sunshine and rainbows. Like, life ain't always about that. You got to put
Right.
a little bit of
Right.
cussing in there, you know what I mean? A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes it's going to 3.5 months, mate. Sometimes it's going to pick up a brick and smack you in the fucking face with it. And it's
That's
going to
right.
continue doing it. You know what I mean? And like, people want to hear the truth. They want to hear a story. Like, we're not kids anymore. We
Yeah.
don't have to hear happily ever after. We want to know how you got the fuck back up after you got pushed to the floor.
Absolutely. And, when I sat down to write it, I mean, I can write beautifully strung together sentences that are very like picture perfect. That is not this book. I didn't want that to be this book. I wanted it to feel like you were, sitting down and hearing your girlfriend spill all of the
Mm.
stuff that happened to her. And so, yeah, I cuss on probably every page, if not every other. And like, it's really blunt and raw and honest. I remember the first time my mom read the first draft, she was like, oh my God, Gabrielle, are you sure you don't want to take out one of the guys you slept with or change your name or protect yourself in some way? And I was like, no, Mom, if I'm going to put it out there, it's got to be authentic, because
Mm.
that's what people are going to connect and resonate with.
Yeah, if you're gonna do it right. Like,
Yeah.
don't half-ass the shit. Don't bullshit people. Like, just say it how it is. I'm definitely on the same page. Like, the amount of times you hear, well, personally, it's like, Alex, you might need to tone the swearing down. I was like, look, man, like, that ain't gonna fucking happen. Let's be honest. Like, I was like, I appreciate your time. I'm probably not the right candidate for this.
Yeah.
And honestly, I find when people relate, when you are being completely authentic and real, they fully relate. It's a huge connection. It's literally life changing rather than like,
Yeah.
oh, thanks, New York Times, for the skinny detox tea or whatever the fuck they're like putting on.
Right. Right.
Thanks for that. I'm going to think about it for the next 37 seconds and then I'm going to go on with my day and nothing's going to change. It's like, no, like, you're creating genuine connections just by having the balls to be like, you know what, fuck this. I'll just be who I am.
Yeah, thank you for that. And the messages that I get on the daily from literally people around the world, it's really crazy to see how global everything has become, about how this book, both the books have, you know, affected them or impacted them or changed their life or saved their life, or gotten them out of an abusive relationship or made them decide to stay and fight for their marriage. Like it's been really incredible to see how many different things people take from it,
Mm.
based on their own experiences.
I think as like technology is advancing, at an exponential rate, which is incredible, right? It's going to go that way, so left field. I think the soft skills, I think the realness has to advance as well at the same speed on the other direction. I think we have to do that.
Yeah.
People crave what they don't have. Grass is always greener, right? So if we're creating this fucking metaverse type shit where people can be whoever they want to be, when they actually have human interaction, they want to hear the individual. They want to see them, they want to hear them, want to understand them, they want to feel them, like rather than like, hey, tell me a story that I'm gonna like, and I don't
Yeah.
actually want to know, and then I'm gonna fuck off and like speak to the next person. It's like no, like tell me the fucking truth.
Yeah, no, and I think that from the beginning, I think it really started when I left on my trip. So that's why I celebrate September 4th, because it's the day that I left on that life-changing Europe adventure.
And it's my mom's
Um,
birthday.
yeah, of course, obviously
Of
that.
course.
And it's a great day. And at the airport, I posted a photo of me with my like giant backpack on. And that was the first time that I opened up publicly about the cheating and the divorce. Like only my very close circle knew. And I was like, look, if I'm going on this fucking soul searching adventure, I have to like at least start open with a clean slate. And my plan was to post that photo and then kind of disconnect from social media on the trip. And I got hundreds and hundreds of messages in like the 2 hour period of posting it to getting on the plane, saying like, please continue to share your story. This totally changed my day. This really like gave me hope. And, please don't stop being open and transparent. And because of those messages, I ended up being very open on social media and was like, okay, whenever I show up, I'm going to show up like raw and authentic. So if I'm partying and having a blast, that's what you'll see. If I am devastated and crying in a corner, you'll read that in the caption. It might not like look like that in the photo, but like you'll read like, yo, shit's not okay.
Mm.
And I'm so glad I did that because it did two things. It documented the trip. So now when all my readers are reading the book, they go back and like stalk my Instagram and can get a visual. And it's like this fun little game that everybody plays. But also because it really started me out on that, like, don't have a facade when you show up, like show up authentically, show up as yourself. And some people aren't going to like that. And that's okay. Art is always subjective. So while 95% of people that read the books love them, there is a solid 5% that think I am the worst fucking thing that ever walked this earth. And like, I get it. It's okay. Not everybody's cup of tea, but it really allowed me to start what has become my brand and like the books and the podcast and everything that I do now in a very authentic manner. And so people know if they pick up something that I'm putting out, like this is what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who she is. My friends that have been my friends all of my life, there's no difference of the Gabrielle that they get or the Gabrielle that my readers and people that are following me online get. And I think that's really important because it's such a toxic environment, social media nowadays. I even remember when my divorce happened, one of my girlfriends reached out, like a not a close girlfriend, reached out and was like, "Oh my God, I remember looking at a photo of you and your ex a couple months ago being like, like, why aren't we this happy? Like everybody should be striving for this." Lo and behold, he was banging a 19-year-old at the time. So it's such a toxic culture when people with platforms don't show up in an authentic way. and be like, hey, I'm actually broken right now. Shit sucks. Because that's like, that happens to everybody. And it's important for people that are consuming it on the other end to not be like, oh my God, why is my life not like that? Why am I not this happy? Why am I?
Mm.
And that's really important for people's mental health, to realize that social media is bullshit.
Yeah, you can fall into a comparison trap real quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you compare your worst days to someone's best day, or you can just compare your reality to their highlight reel, right? And I think
Right.
that's really dangerous.
Yeah.
And being authentic and coming across that way, like one word sticks out to me when you're talking is inspiring. Like it inspires other people to be like, you know what, I'm gonna do my thing, because this is my thing. And you first have to take that space for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to allow yourself to sit in that uncomfortable position, figure out who the fuck you are, never fucking forget it, and then be like, okay, cool, what's my truth, right? And then go live it that way. And then if everybody else doesn't like it, like literally everybody else, who cares,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And then when you find that out, set your standards and be brutal about them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ruthless with cutting people out of my life. And I don't mean that in a pretentious way. I mean that in like I'm fucking protective of my peace.
And your energy,
And
yeah.
yeah. And there are certain things, like certain boundaries that I have with any individual. I don't care if you're a boyfriend or a friend or a family member. If they get crossed, like I'll
Bye.
continue to be nice to you, but like you no longer are like welcome in this space. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important for people to hold true to that and to really know your worth. And once you find that, really demand it.
Mm-hmm. I say to people all the time, like if they come to me and ask for advice or on whatever, or we just get into a conversation, I'm like, people are allowed to treat you however the fuck they want. Right? They're allowed to treat you in whatever manner they deem fit because it's their life. You have no control of another human being. That is unfair. You are not some sort of esoteric being, right? But it's then your responsibility to figure out whether you're okay with it.
Yeah,
If you are, great, shut up, carry on, live your life. If you're not, you got to do something about it.
absolutely. Yeah.
You
It's
know,
your responsibility to set those boundaries and be
yep.
like, no, I don't accept this. And if you do, all you're ultimately doing is telling the universe, this is acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
I'll deal with this. Send some more of that shit. And then you're like, why do I keep attracting these fucking terrible people into my life? And it's because, well, you're allowing them to stay. You're
Mm-hmm.
allowing them to be there. And that in turn tells the world, okay, this is fine.
Yeah, and you feel disconnected, and you feel like you're disconnected with everybody else, so you change yourself to be with them, to be like them, but you're actually
Yes.
disconnected with yourself, right?
Yeah.
And again, the outcome is the same. It's funny, like it's also funny how the individual. So, say for example, you stop talking to them, you just kind of like pull yourself out, arm's distance. You know, they do their thing, you do your thing. You communicate very rarely. How many people come knocking at your door?
Mm-hmm.
It's very few,
Yeah.
right? Very few. Like, yeah, right. A lot of the time, it's like, oh, you've not fucking. You think you missed a big shot now, or missed a big shot. You're doing X, Y, and Z. Like, I'm like, okay. Pay
Yeah.
attention to what people tell you when they're emotional, because that's when the truth comes out.
Yes. And, I've learned wholeheartedly to, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Believe them. Don't try and make it so, oh, I could change them, or, oh, maybe it's because of this, or excusing behaviors. Really, you will save yourself so much grief if, when you are shown who someone is, you believe them.
Mm. I have a rule for myself of I don't believe a single word that you tell me. I believe what you showed me.
I love that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I can actually recall quite a lot of conversations I've had with previous employers where I sit down and, I know I'll work insanely hard, right? So I'm like, hey, things need to be aligned for me to do this because I'm kind of like a rabid dog. I'll just do the work, right? That's kind of who I am. So I'm like, right, okay, you've laid out all these promises on the line. I don't believe you. Like now you're gonna have to show me
Yeah.
because I know my worth and I'll work towards that. And you got to do the same with your friendship groups. You got to do the same with family, romance, whatever the fuck it is, right? It's like,
Yeah.
show me.
So important.
Let's talk more action.
Yes. Less talk, more action. And that's the same with people, because I get so many messages from people that are saying, like, oh, well, this happened, or so and so cheated on me, or something bad happened, and they're sorry and they're apologizing. I'm like, okay, but is there changed behavior behind
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
Because if there's no changed behavior behind an apology, that doesn't mean shit. Those are just words.
So I wrote something last week, and it rustled some feathers, and some people loved it and some people were like, what the fuck, man?
Oh, all right.
So it was like lying in bed manifesting doesn't do anything, princess, do the fucking work. And I
Okay, I
think
see why that might have ruffled feathers.
you know what I mean? And I'm like,
Yeah.
a lot of the time we fall into this trap of like, oh no, like, I'm putting it, I'm like, okay, that's great, right? You've got first step, but what are you doing? I'm not doing anything about it. Right. So
Right.
shut the fuck up and go do some work. Right.
No, and it goes hand in hand. Like, you can't, you know, I personally believe that you're not going to create something that you're pounding the pavement for, and you're like, if I just like keep grinding and I
Yeah.
keep grinding, like, if your mental state isn't vibrating at the right level with that to manifest what you're wanting, you can fucking keep working until you're dead. Like, that
100%
shit's
agreed.
not coming if
Yep.
you have that block. Also, if you're like, you're right. If you're laying in bed going like, I'm creating $1 million, I'm creating $1 million. Look, I mean, look, I've seen from my mom's healing work that she does, like, yeah, if you're working and doing what you're supposed to be doing and doing that manifesting stuff, will random money literally just like appear? Yeah, because you're doing something and working towards that while calling it in on
Mm-hmm.
that vibration level. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it goes hand in hand. But yeah, you can't just be laying around expecting things to be handed to you.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with both points. Like I'm a spiritual dude. I do that whole universe. I got it from my mum. Like we connect with one another and also ourselves, and that's why I spend a lot of time alone. And I 100% agree. And I think lads in particular need to do a lot more of it.
Yeah.
We do the other way, right? In the sense
Yeah.
of, I'll get on a treadmill and I'll run until I pass out. And guess what? I've not moved anywhere. I'm on a treadmill, right? I've
Right.
been I've
Right.
been hustling, I've been grinding, but I'm not actually going anywhere. I was like, right.
Yeah.
First of all, you need to sit down. You need to not move. You need to not work. You need to journal, whatever, to be figuring out what direction you want to go into. And then yes, you need some work ethic.
Yeah. Big time. Big
Agreed.
time.
Agreed. I don't know. I'm one dude that will just tell you straight, and sometimes it's a little bit close to the bone.
No, I think we need more of that. Everybody's always so like worried about, how is this going to be perceived? How's this going to be taken? And it's just like, that's the society layer of bullshit that we put
Mm-hmm.
on in
Mm-hmm.
order to make sure that, we're not too much for people. So I think we need more of that.
Perception is reality, man. You know, like understanding someone else's perspective is a beautiful, beautiful thing,
Yeah.
right? But then like casting out someone else's perspective, not walking a mile in their shoes and be like, no, 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 no. This for me is like, oh, okay. Like enjoy the little bubble that you're in. The life is abundant, it is a rainbow.
Yeah.
I
Love
got
that.
I got 3 questions.
Okay.
What's the greatest piece of life advice you've ever received?
Oh my God, dude.
Come on, you're a
I
lady that's
mean,
done a few things. Like there's gonna be some
oh my
things in there, maybe
God.
a couple of nuggets.
Oh, okay. I got it. The best life advice I ever received was from my mother.
Legend.
And she said, no matter what is going on or what you're going through or what is happening, keep your heart open.
Mm.
And it's so deep and so simple at the same time. Because so often when things happen to us in this life, we want to shut down and protect our heart. And that's the first thing that closes. And when that closes, that shuts off all of your creation.
Yeah.
So for example, if I ever had a time that I was warranted to like put a wall up and shut my heart down, it would have been after my divorce. If I would have done that, I wouldn't have met the guy after, wouldn't have fallen in love, wouldn't have gotten my heart broken, and wouldn't have gone on this Europe trip that has now led me to, an entire new career. And that's so incredibly fulfilling in like what I'm doing in my life. And I did all that because I was able to keep my heart open. So I think that is the biggest and best life advice I've gotten.
And I really hope dudes listen to that.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and too, I talked so much about, toxic masculinity on my podcast, FML Talk, because there's such a cultural thing for men that, it's like, you have to like not cry and be strong and don't show emotion. Like that's a prerequisite for me. If I'm going to date someone, like you need to be able to show emotion. I have to be able to communicate with you about your feelings, and you have to like be down for therapy, like non-negotiables for me. And I think the more we can have, what society would look at as strong men come on to different platforms and open up about, being emotional and being vulnerable and showing that they've had success in doing that, we can start to chip away at that narrative that's been part of our world for so long.
I love this shit, man. I love diving into this. Like I talk about that stuff like all day, like I nickname it the poetic warrior. Like you need to be able to do both. You need to be able to take yourself into the arena, but also take yourself into the cave, right? And that's why I fucking, work out and do all the athletic stuff and then like write poetry. Like it's two conflicting things, right?
But I feel that way about women too, like we need to be able to do that too.
100%. No, I'm saying across the board.
I know, but I feel so many people don't, I'm in complete agreement with you, but then looking at it on the flip side, it's like a lot of women I feel have not found that balance necessarily, like it's like, oh, if I demand my worth or I, work a badass job and, have a really like high bar set for myself, that's too much, like you got to like tone it down a little bit in some fact. It's like, no, fuck that. Like be your authentic self, and you need to have both. Like it's the duality of being a human being.
Yeah, and obviously there's like, the law of individuality and case by case basis, it's going to be different, right? But I found just by experience of like coaching just so many people, like thousands of people across the world now, it's like most of the time, speaking from experience, ladies, it's like get some confidence to get in the arena, right? And then the other time with the lads, it's like, right, get out of that fucking arena now. You've been in it 24 hours a day. All right. Now you need to sit down and be with yourself or communicate or whatever you need to do. And it's important that both do both.
Yes.
We're humans.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Anyway, question 2, what's the worst piece of life advice you've ever received?
Oh my God. I feel like I filter that out so well. So I have to like dive into the archives.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to put you in a weird place.
No, it's fine. I do have to plug. Sorry, give me 1 sec. I have to plug my computer in.
That's all right.
Okay, there we go. It's gonna go to sleep on me. Worst piece of life advice. Okay, well, I won't say that it was from a person necessarily, because it wasn't, but I feel like it was from different people throughout my life, and it was never said in this way, but I think people deal with this a lot, and that's to dim your light. I think especially when I was younger, because I was such a bold kid, there was a lot of messages subliminally that I got from different teachers, different adults in my life, that was like, it's too much, like dim your light. And I love the quote, be who you were before the world taught you to dim your fucking light. So I would say that would be the worst advice I've ever gotten, is to tone it down and dim your light.
Yeah.
And I think that shows up even in my adulthood. It was when I took my book to the publishers and they were like, well, I think it's a little in your face. We need to tone it down a little bit. You know, you can't have the F word in the title. And like, really?
No, don't do me like, no.
Yeah.
People living authentically to themselves and living through their passion is the most beautiful thing on the planet. Full stop.
Yes.
In whatever capacity they're doing, it's stunning.
Yeah. And if people don't like it, there's a lot of other people on the planet to go hang out with.
There's 8 billion of us, right?
Yep.
And guess what? If none of them like you, there's a lot of animals, you know?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. I mean, I have 3 dogs, so I'm right there.
Yeah. I'm going to be that crazy cat guy, you know, with like monkeys, chimps, a giraffe, you know, just hanging around.
Oh my God. I love
Definitely
it.
going to be that dude. 3 words you tell your younger self.
You'll be okay. I think there were so many things in my life that at the time seemed so catastrophic and monumental and I think everybody goes through stuff like this in their life where you're like, I will never get over this. I remember when specifically, you know, because when I lost my dad, I was so young that it didn't fully process as a 6-year-old, like what this means on a grand scale. But when I lost my high school sweetheart, I remember looking at my girlfriend and being like, I don't think I'm gonna get over this. Like, I don't see the light. I don't see an out. And it was scary. That feeling is scary. And it's the same feeling that people get when they have that overwhelming depression. You're like, I don't see that light. And like, when you can't see that light, what's the fucking point then to continue? And so whenever I get messages about that, or I speak on that, because I've been through both of it. I've been through the depression. I've been through the grief of it all. And I can promise people that no matter how dark it seems at the moment, and if you can't see that light at the moment, it is there and it does exist. So you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and knowing that it all is happening for a reason and holding on to that hope until that little sliver of light appears. Because once you get to that other side, it is fucking magical.
Mate, that's beautiful. That's really touched me, and I think it's going to touch a lot of people. Like that's powerful, man. It's
Thank
powerful, you know. And
So
the collective
took me a
hope.
long time to learn it.
Yeah, man. I mean, humans are dumb, you know.
Yeah. We're still working on it.
Yeah. We put people on the moon. We're going towards Mars, but we can't understand what's in between our own head.
Right.
You know, it
right.
doesn't make any sense. And then when you start getting emotions in there too, like with the heart and the spirit, like we have no idea.
Yeah.
But it's those soft skills.
Complex being human.
It's those soft skills, man. You got to take time for yourself every day. Yep. Figure it out every day. You know, keep chipping away. Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour.
Yes. You've got some good quotes over here, dude. I'm loving it.
Well, I'm crazy, you see, so I do a lot of thinking. I do a lot of time on my own, and I'm a fucking poet too, right? So I've got to be able to take something that's complex and put it into a sentence or a few sentences. So
that's great. I love it.
I'm one of those nuts people.
We love nuts. We love our nuts.
Yeah, sitting on a rock somewhere, you know, doing the thing.
That's the best way to do it. That's the best way to live.
100%. 100%. You know, find your people, and if they're not your people, just do your thing, man. Don't worry about the opinions of other people, judgment. Like their judgment on you is not for you. Right? Yeah. That's not your thought. It's not for you. You don't need to know it. Whatever, you crack on. And again, if you're fucking radiating your own true, authentic self, that is fucking stunning.
Yes. Big mate, yes to that.
Mate, I appreciate your time so much. I know you're super busy and you got to jump. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me on. And I appreciate you putting content like this out into the world. I think we need more of it. And the fact that it is coming from a man, I think is really, really important as well. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. Yeah. Like hopefully we can do some things. We can help some people along the way. Right.
Hell yes. Big yes to that.
Sounds good. If you ever, you know, in the middle of Middle Earth again, let me know. We'll grab a coffee. We'll shoot the shit again.
I so will. It's like so high on my list to get back there. So I will definitely hit you up.
I think the borders are opening up soon, but they did promise that like 2 years ago. So,
Right. I know. I know.
but fucking whatever. It'll happen when it happens.
It will.
All right, mate. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I so appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Have a good day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.